Hello, everyone. Welcome back to JeyB Tech Academy. Welcome to Lesson 14 of our SQL Server Mastery course. In our previous lesson, we learned how to retrieve only the rows we need by using the top clause. We saw how to display the top records, use top %, combine top with order by, and even handle ties using the with ties option. Now let's look at another very common problem that SQL developers face. Imagine your database contains thousands of employee records. Many employees belong to the same department. Many customers live in the same city. Many products belong to the same category. If you simply retrieve those columns, you'll see the same values repeated again and again. But what if your manager asks a simple question? How many different departments do we have? Which cities do our customers belong to? What product categories are available in our store? In these situations, duplicate values are not useful. We need only the unique values. This is exactly where the distinct clause becomes useful. The distinct clause removes duplicate values from the query result and returns only unique records. It helps us create cleaner reports, populate drop-down lists, analyze business data, and build better applications. In this lesson, you'll learn what the distinct clause is, how it works, and when you should use it. We'll see how to use distinct with a single column, with multiple columns, and together with the order by clause. We'll also compare distinct with group by, discuss common beginner mistakes, and explore several real-world business examples. By the end of this lesson, you'll know exactly how to remove duplicate values and retrieve only meaningful information from your database. This is one of the simplest SQL clauses, but it's also one of the most useful in everyday SQL development. So let's get started and learn how to retrieve only unique values using the distinct clause. Imagine you're working in a company with thousands of employee records. Your manager asks you a very simple question. How many departments do we have in our company? You open the employees table and retrieve the department column. Immediately, you notice something. The same department names appear again and again. It, HR, Finance, Sales, HR, Marketing. The list keeps repeating. Now think about it. Does your manager want to see hundreds of repeated department names? Of course not. The manager only wants to know the different departments that exist. This situation happens in almost every business application. A customer database may contain thousands of customers from the same city. A product database may contain hundreds of products in the same category. An employee database may contain many employees working in the same department. Showing duplicate values makes reports longer, harder to read, and less useful. Instead, we need only the unique values. This is exactly why SQL Server provides the distinct clause. The distinct clause removes duplicate values from the result and returns only unique records. For example, instead of displaying IT 20 times, SQL Server displays it only once. The same happens for HR, Finance, Sales, and every other department. The result becomes clean, simple, and easy to understand. This is especially useful when creating reports, filling drop-down lists, generating filters, or analyzing business data. Always remember one important point. The distinct clause does not remove duplicate data from the table. It removes duplicate values only from the query result. The original data inside the database remains completely unchanged. In the next slide, we'll learn exactly what the distinct clause is and understand how it works with a simple SQL query. Now let's understand what the distinct clause is. The distinct clause is used to remove duplicate values from the result of a SQL query. Instead of returning every value, SQL Server returns only the unique values. Let's understand this with a simple example. Suppose your employees table contains 1,000 employee records. Many employees work in the same department. If you retrieve the department column using a normal select statement, you'll see department names repeated many times. For example, it may appear hundreds of times. HR may also appear many times. Finance, sales, and marketing may also repeat throughout the result. But what if you need only the list of departments that exist in the company? This is where the distinct clause becomes useful. Simply place the distinct keyword immediately after the select statement. SQL Server checks the values in the selected column. Whenever it finds duplicate values, it keeps only one occurrence and removes the repeated values from the query result. For example, if the department column contains IT 20 times, SQL Server displays it only once. The same happens for every other department. The final result contains only unique department names. This makes the output much cleaner and easier to understand. The basic syntax is very simple. First, write the select keyword. Then write distinct. Finally, specify the column name that you want to retrieve. This is one of the easiest SQL statements to write, but it is also one of the most useful. The distinct clause is widely used in business applications. It helps generate unique department lists, unique customer cities, unique product categories, unique payment methods, and many other reports that require only distinct values. One important point to remember is that the distinct clause removes duplicate values only from the query result. It does not delete or modify any data stored inside the table. Your database remains completely unchanged. In the next slide, we'll learn how to use the distinct clause with a single column and see how duplicate values disappear from the output. Now let's learn how to use the distinct clause with a single column. This is the most common use of the distinct clause in SQL Server. Suppose your employees table contains 1,000 employee records. Many employees work in the same department. If you retrieve the department column using a normal select statement, you'll see the same department names repeated many times. For example, it may appear hundreds of times. HR may appear again and again. Finance, sales, and marketing may also be repeated. This makes the result longer and more difficult to read. But what if your manager needs only the list of departments in the company? In that case, we use the distinct clause. Let's look at the SQL query shown on the screen. We write the select keyword. Then we write distinct. Finally, we specify the department column. When SQL Server executes this query, it scans the department column. Whenever it finds duplicate values, it keeps only the first occurrence. All repeated department names are removed from the result. The output now becomes much cleaner. Instead of displaying hundreds of repeated values, SQL Server returns only one entry for each department. For example, the final result might contain only IT, HR, finance, sales, marketing, and support. Each department appears only once. This is exactly what the business needs. The distinct clause is commonly used when creating drop-down lists in applications. It is also used in reports where only unique values are required. Business analysts use it to understand available categories, locations, departments, product types, payment methods, and many other unique values stored in the database. Always remember one important point. The distinct clause removes duplicate values only from the selected column in the query result. It does not delete duplicate records from the database. The original table remains completely unchanged. In the next slide, we'll learn how the distinct clause works with multiple columns and understand an important concept that every SQL developer should know. Now let's understand how the distinct clause works with multiple columns. This is one of the most important concepts that beginners often misunderstand. So pay close attention. When we use the distinct clause with a single column, SQL Server removes duplicate values from that column. But when we use distinct with multiple columns, SQL Server behaves differently. Instead of checking each column individually, SQL Server checks the complete combination of all the selected columns. Let's understand this with an example. Suppose we select the department column and the city column from the employees table. Our query uses the distinct clause on both columns. Now imagine the data contains these records. It from Chennai, it from Chennai, it from Bangalore, HR from Chennai, HR from Chennai, finance from Mumbai. What will SQL Server return? First, SQL Server compares the complete combination of department and city. The combination it and Chennai appears twice. Since both values are exactly the same, SQL Server returns it only once. The combination HR and Chennai also appears twice. Again, SQL Server keeps only one record. However, notice the combination IT and Bangalore. Even though the department is still it, the city is different. Because the complete combination is different, SQL Server keeps this record. The final result contains only unique combinations of department and city. This is a very important rule. The distinct clause does not check each column separately. It checks the entire row made up of the selected columns. If even one selected column contains a different value, SQL Server treats it as a unique record. This feature is extremely useful in real-world applications. For example, you may need a list of unique department and city combinations, or unique product category and brand combinations, or unique customer city and state combinations. Using the distinct clause makes these reports simple and efficient. Always remember this rule. With multiple columns, distinct removes duplicate combinations, not duplicate values from individual columns. Understanding this concept will help you avoid one of the most common mistakes made by beginner SQL developers. In the next slide, we'll compare the distinct clause with the group by clause and understand when to use each one in real-world SQL queries. Now let's understand the difference between the distinct clause and the group by clause. At first glance, both of these clauses may seem to produce similar results. In many cases, they can even return the same output. Because of this, many beginners think they are exactly the same. But they are not. Each clause has a different purpose. Let's begin with the distinct clause. The distinct clause is used to remove duplicate values from the query result. It simply returns only the unique values from the selected columns. It does not perform any calculations. It only removes duplicate records from the output. Now let's look at the group by clause. The group by clause is used to group rows that have the same values. Once the rows are grouped, SQL Server allows us to perform calculations such as count, sum, AVG, min, and max on each group. Let's understand this with a simple example. Suppose your employees table contains employees from different departments. If your manager asks, "What are the different departments in our company?" you should use the distinct clause, because the manager only wants the unique department names. Now imagine your manager asks a different question. How many employees work in each department? This time, the distinct clause cannot answer the question. Instead, we use the group by clause together with the count function. SQL Server groups all employees by department and then counts the number of employees in each group. Now the output becomes much more meaningful for business reporting. This is the biggest difference between these two clauses. Distinct removes duplicates. Group by creates groups and allows calculations on each group. In real-world applications, both clauses are used frequently. Distinct is commonly used for drop-down lists, filters, search options, and unique reports. Group by is commonly used for dashboards, business reports, sales analysis, employee statistics, financial reports, and data summaries. Always remember this simple rule. If your goal is to retrieve only unique values, use distinct. If your goal is to group data and perform calculations, use group by. Understanding this difference will help you choose the correct SQL statement in almost every business scenario. In the next slide, we'll learn how to combine the distinct clause with the order by clause to retrieve unique values in a well-organized and sorted order. Now let's learn how to use the distinct clause together with the order by clause. This is one of the most common combinations used in SQL Server. So far, we've learned that the distinct clause removes duplicate values. We've also learned in an earlier lesson that the order by clause sorts the query result. Now let's combine these two clauses. Suppose your employees table contains hundreds of employee records. Many employees work in the same department. If you use only the distinct clause, SQL Server returns only the unique department names. However, the departments may appear in any order. For example, the result might display sales, then HR, then IT, then finance. Although the values are unique, the output is not well organized. Now let's add the order by clause. We write the distinct clause first to remove duplicate values. Then we add the order by clause to sort the remaining unique values alphabetically. When SQL Server executes the query, it first removes all duplicate department names. After that, it sorts the unique department names in ascending order. The final output becomes much cleaner and easier to read. Instead of a random list, the departments now appear in alphabetical order. For example, finance, HR, IT, marketing, sales, support. This combination is used in many real-world applications. Drop-down lists often display unique values in alphabetical order. Search filters show unique categories sorted from A to Z. Customer cities are displayed without duplicates and arranged alphabetically. Product categories, payment methods, countries, and job titles are also commonly displayed this way. Always remember the execution flow. First, SQL Server removes duplicate values using the distinct clause. Then, it sorts the remaining unique values using the order by clause. This combination produces reports that are both clean and professional. Whenever you need a unique list that is easy for users to read, combine the distinct clause with the order by clause. In the next slide, we'll look at some of the most common mistakes beginners make while using the distinct clause and learn the best practices followed by professional SQL developers. Now let's look at some of the most common mistakes beginners make when using the distinct clause. Understanding these mistakes will help you write cleaner, more accurate, and more professional SQL queries. The first and most common mistake is expecting the distinct clause to remove duplicate rows from the database. This is not true. The distinct clause only removes duplicate values from the query result. It never changes or deletes the actual data stored in the table. The second mistake is using the distinct clause when it isn't needed. Some beginners add distinct to almost every query. This can make the query more complex and may add unnecessary processing. Always ask yourself one question: do I really need only unique values? If the answer is no, then you probably don't need the distinct clause. Another common mistake is misunderstanding how distinct works with multiple columns. Many beginners think SQL Server checks each selected column separately. But that's not how it works. When multiple columns are selected, SQL Server checks the complete combination of those columns. If even one selected value is different, SQL Server considers it a unique record. Another mistake is confusing the distinct clause with the group by clause. Although both can sometimes produce similar results, they are designed for different purposes. Distinct removes duplicate values. Group by groups rows and allows aggregate calculations such as count, sum, AVG, min, and max. Choosing the wrong clause can produce incorrect results. Some beginners also assume that the distinct clause automatically sorts the output. It does not. If you want the unique values to appear in alphabetical order or any specific order, you must use the order by clause. Never assume the output will be sorted automatically. Finally, many beginners execute the query and immediately trust the result without verifying it. Professional SQL developers always review the output carefully. They confirm that the returned values match the actual business requirement. Always remember these best practices. Use the distinct clause only when duplicate values must be removed. Understand how it behaves with single and multiple columns. Use the order by clause whenever sorted output is required. And most importantly, always verify your query results before using them in reports or applications. Following these simple practices will help you write cleaner, faster, and more reliable SQL queries. In the next slide, we'll apply everything you've learned today to real-world business scenarios and see where the distinct clause is used in professional SQL development. Now let's see how the distinct clause is used in real-world business applications. Learning the syntax is important, but understanding where to use the distinct clause is what makes you a professional SQL developer. Let's begin with an employee management system. Suppose the Human Resources Department wants to see all the departments available in the company. Instead of displaying every employee and repeating the same department names again and again, we use the distinct clause. SQL Server returns only the unique department names. Now let's look at a customer management system. A marketing team wants to know which cities their customers come from. Thousands of customers may belong to the same city. Using the distinct clause, SQL Server returns each city only once. This helps the marketing team plan city-wide campaigns. Next, imagine an e-commerce application. The website needs to display a list of available product categories in a filter. Instead of showing electronics hundreds of times, SQL Server returns each category only once. This creates a clean and user-friendly shopping experience. Let's consider another example. In a hospital management system, an administrator wants to know which medical departments are available. The doctor's table may contain hundreds of doctors working in the same department. Using the distinct clause, SQL Server displays each department only once. Now think about a banking application. A bank manager wants to know which account types are currently available. Instead of displaying savings or current accounts repeatedly for every customer, SQL Server returns only the unique account types. This makes reports much cleaner and easier to understand. These are just a few examples. In reality, the distinct clause is used in almost every business application. Employee reports, customer databases, product catalogs, hospital systems, banking applications, school management systems, inventory systems, financial reporting. Every one of these applications uses the distinct clause to retrieve meaningful and unique information. As a SQL developer, your responsibility is not just to retrieve data. Your responsibility is to present data in the most useful way for business users. Always remember this simple principle. Repeated information creates confusion. Unique information creates clarity. Whenever your users need only unique values, the distinct clause is the right solution. In the next slide, we'll quickly summarize everything you've learned in this lesson and get ready for the next exciting topic in our SQL Server Mastery course. Congratulations! You've successfully completed Lesson 14 of our SQL Server Mastery course. In this lesson, you learned one of the simplest yet most powerful SQL clauses, the distinct clause. We started by understanding why duplicate values appear in database tables and why they can make reports longer and more difficult to read. Then we learned how the distinct clause removes duplicate values from a query result and returns only unique values. After that, we explored how to use the distinct clause with a single column to retrieve unique departments, cities, categories, and many other business-related values. Next, we learned how the distinct clause works with multiple columns. We discovered that SQL Server checks the complete combination of the selected columns, not each column individually. Then we compared the distinct clause with the group by clause. We learned that the distinct clause is used to remove duplicate values, while the group by clause is used to group data and perform calculations such as count, sum, AVG, min, and max. We also learned how to combine the distinct clause with the order by clause to display unique values in a clean and well-organized order. Finally, we discussed the most common beginner mistakes and explored several real-world business scenarios where the distinct clause is used every day. Always remember one important principle. The distinct clause does not change the data stored in the database. It simply changes the way the query result is displayed by removing duplicate values. Whenever your users need a clean list of unique information, the distinct clause is the perfect solution. Now it's your turn to practice. Open SQL Server Management Studio and try every example from this lesson. Retrieve unique department names. Retrieve unique customer cities. Retrieve unique product categories. Experiment with multiple columns. Combine the distinct clause with the order by clause. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become in writing professional SQL queries. If you found this lesson helpful, please like this video, share it with your friends and colleagues, and subscribe to JeyB Tech Academy for more beginner-friendly SQL Server tutorials. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications so you'll never miss our upcoming lessons. In our next lesson, we'll learn the count function and discover how SQL Server counts rows, counts values, and helps generate meaningful business reports. Thank you for watching. Keep learning, keep practicing, and I'll see you in Lesson 15. Closing message. Great SQL developers don't just retrieve data. They know how to transform raw data into meaningful information. See you in Lesson 15.